Alright, another draft physics presentation. Probably not on physics, but on some sort of psychology of arguing and, the problems in terms of fighting the entrenched ideologies and all of that kind of crap. Again, I'll just say that scientists should be above it in the sense that they should be responsive to critiques of their theories or ideas. They shouldn't be just like every other religious kook. They shouldn't go in defensive modes and use bullshit tactics and nonsense rhetoric. They shouldn't be guilty of fallacious resorts to fallacious arguments, the fallacy of, and they're obviously not. And the more science becomes some sort of public spectacle, of the competing scientists and their talking head science, the more it becomes a religion that has no internal mechanism to control its eccentricities. And it really has lost all of those. In the past, scientists did have to defend themselves against each other, and they weren't all singing the same song, and you don't hear any dissonant science at all. It's all same song bullshit. The vast majority. So anyway, so Hothleday is just representing essentially this stick in the mud naysaying, just march, he's just playing his role as somebody just, confining the crowd and, march the way you're supposed to march. Fall into the cliche retarded trap of thinking because something exists as an idea, it has some sort of legitimacy. It's inherently or fundamentally worthy of cheating in a fair fight. Alright, anyway. In the model of critical thinking, in one model of critical thinking and how to proceed in debate, there is a principle of charity. Whatever. Okay, fine. It says you. Make it complicated. So it isn't just some simple thing. Like, you're two detectives, you show up at a scene, and you start to argue over what the evidence means. Anyway, essentially, if there are two ways to take a thing, one being the better standpoint than the other, then you take the better standpoint. Well, again, what does that even mean? I'd argue that this extends to if one interpretation could be agnostic or whatever, and the other interpretation is what is this? This is almost like Ken Wheeler bullshit. Reconciliatory. What the hell does this have to do with anything? Then you adopt the ladder. Why would I do any of that? It's hard because it demands pausing and being cognizant of the possibilities. And again, why wouldn't these be automatic rules? I mean, you can be fooled by evidence. We're all kind of supposed to be smart people, and we can know, magicians can trick us. But if we really think about it, we can understand the trick. If we give it some thought, we can know, they didn't just make a rabbit. He didn't just invent rabbit. The rabbit was somewhere. He has a name. He eats food every day. He didn't just get poofed into existence. You can figure out things like that. But I'll say this for you: if there is a shitty end of the stick to grab, you grab it, or whatever that even. So again, more bullshit. I didn't grab any shitty stick. I showed up and said, hey, you know what? Einstein could have been wrong. Now, is that correct or not? And I said, this thing, if you think about it, really does work awful well. And it does all this other stuff. And what did I get from creatures like you? Cretins like you. I got the stick. So, fuck you and this bullshit. That somehow you're fair cops. Bullshit. You pulled out your club and said, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. That's what you did. Oh, you're just such a liar. God, it's so fucking disgusting. This will antagonize you. Yeah, that's right. Everything you say is antagonistic, preachy crap. If there is a shitty end of the stick to grab, you grab it. This will antagonize you. It isn't meant to. Well, again, it isn't meant to. I don't mean to call you fat and dull and dim-witted. It's just the truth. You're fat and dull and dim-witted and slow-talking and slow-thinking and conventionalist and a traditionalist, and you're myopic and you can't see 5 feet in front of your face, and you have absolutely zero imagination. I don't mean to be antagonistic. Fuck you! I mean, what a fucking Looney Tune. But it's just whatever this is. Exasperation on my part at your go-to place of hostility. Again, Joe, yes, you make the insults and then you complain that you get it right back up your own fucking fat ass. Yes, that's just too brilliant. I'm going to just block you after this, okay? So we'll be done with this nonsense. I'm wasting my time talking to you. You're not making any arguments. I ask you direct questions. What do you think happens, fatful a day, when a photon goes in between the two slits? Right in between. What do you think really happens, douchebag? Oh, geometry moves things. Yeah, why don't you show me the formula that has geometry moving things? Show me how the geometry tells the proton where to go. Why don't you show me how that happens? How the proton is made and somehow it can tell that the geometry is calling. How does the proton know that the geometry is telling it should do something? What does it have, geometry radar? The proton and the electron. How do they know? They've got the geometry demands that we move. Anyway. Oh, so here he does again. Qualitative modeling in science equals fucking phantasmagorical wishful thinking. That's what it equals. As a predictive equation. So he's doing it again. He just keeps talking about these predictive equations. So I make the exact assertion that no, none of the equations are written to predict anything. They're all written to describe events they actually see. They see it happen, and they write an equation to describe what happened. They're not writing predictive equations. And again, I pointed out, show me the predictions, and I'll show you that it wasn't a prediction. So you go ahead, give me the list of all the predictions the equations predicted. And I'll prove and demonstrate that's a pile of shit. That wasn't predicted by any fucking equation. Anyway. I mean, unless you want to say something like, oh, we observed that light's reflections are probabilistic, and therefore any circumstance where there's a probability has now been predicted. Well, that's kind of a horse shit too, right? Because we know that the probabilities for the different circumstances are different for every single material. Fuck. Anyway. Predictive equation yielding numeric answers from measuring instruments. And again, what does that piece of shit have to do with anything? I mean, it's just so fucking pompous and pretentious of you to sit there and think anybody needs to understand that, oh yes, formulas have something to do with equations. I mean, equations have something to do with experiments. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's where they're derived from, is the experiments. The observation of the results. Anyway. Qualitative modeling, qualitative model in science equals another, so it equals two different things. Explicit mathematical relationships between the variables. Isn't that exactly what I said? That's all the formulas are, is a formalization of the variables that lead to the results. That's all. No predictions involved in a sense, and certainly they're not made by predicting ahead of time. But anyway, if it was possible, it'd just be possible, whatever that means. Is it a stupid hypothesis? You answer this. If unicorns really did exist, would they be friendly to humans, you think? Question mark. Why would anyone even consider such a silly question? Because obviously you don't have nearly enough information to answer the question. So if the first thing a scientist says, there's no information, I can't answer that question. Go ask. It's a silly question. Move along. And the whole point I've made in these videos is that it seems physics will jump at anything to answer. They'll explain what exactly how the universe was created. They'll actually sit there and do that. They'll sit there and talk about how, oh yes, it's quite possible to make a universe from nothing, or blah blah blah. You know, they'll make up stories about it, just completely made up bullshit. They have absolutely no information from which to make this determination of creation, and yet they'll sit there and make up crap anyway. I mean, it's all just crap because there's absolutely no evidence to base the opinion on. Your qualitative reasoning, I'm just so sick of this word. My reasoning, period. Reasoning. I'm reasoning. I'm seeing the facts, and I'm reasoning that no, photons don't have radar. No, there's not an infinite number of universes. No, that sounds like complete shit. Discusses the same variables granted. Yes. Oh yes, that's what it does. Yes. I recognize that the experiments, most of them, are fundamentally sound. I'm arguing with, again, the interpretation and the depth of the analysis of the experiment. They assume things in their experiments. They assume black box creates entangled photons. They assume black box can count photons. They assume black box can mate with photons. They have lots of little black boxes and they make lots of assumptions. And as I've pointed out on my own fucking porch, their assumptions about what beam splitters do seems to be in quite significant doubt. Because a faint plain piece of glass does it. Fuck this. It's just so fucking stupid. You have paid no attention to any video I have made. Just none whatsoever. Granted, but implies often different relationships, hence different equations. I've explained the differences. Though they're subtle differences. Yes, the width of the slit matters, the frequency of the light matters, the distance from the target matters, and the variable in dispute is the cause of the sine theta. What's creating the angle? Fucking A. I've done it, explicitly pointed out where my math would just change the cause of this variable. Or it would say something like, when you have the inverse square rule in your math, then you have to recognize that if you're relying on multiple point sources for the energy, that when the two objects get close, no more inverse square law, now you have a much stronger attraction or repulsion. Yeah, that's my modifications. I've detailed my modifications. Just ignore it, cunt. As your typical tactic, just distort the history, the truth, the facts. Fucker. Anyway. This is a rejection of the equations of orthodox science. So if you modify an equation, it's a rejection of an equation. If you say they've got the cause of the variable, sine theta, wrong, that means you have to blow up the entire equation. You're rejecting the science. You're rejecting the existence of the probability. You're rejecting the fact that it's built into the fact that the photon goes in different locations in the slit. That's where the probability comes from. That's what creates the permutations, is that the photon goes through the slit in different locations. This is just so fucking dishonest. This opens up to the criticism that your model is only qualitative. So again, I don't accept your rhetoric, so just keep using it all the fuck you want, but I don't accept this idiotic notion that there's something called qualitative rhetoric and quantitative rhetoric, or quantitative evidence and qualitative evidence. It's either matches or it doesn't match. This is just horse shit. This fancy jargon to distract and confuse. It's just bullshit. Yes, also quantitative models are abstract. Again, more bullshit about something being an abstract model. If it's going to be a model of reality, then it shouldn't be abstract. Again, you said before that metaphors can be abstract. Well, that's fine. The metaphors can be abstract. The model itself can't be abstract, or it's not going to be the reality. You can't even figure out that? And are fundamentally not theories of cause. Whatever. Again, it has nothing to do with what I'm arguing. I'm specifically arguing cause. All of my arguments revolve around arguing their preposterous notions of cause. Their absent cause for magnetism, their virtual photons, their bent space, their dark matter, all of it's about causes, shithead. Every single fucking video I make is about fucking causes. Shit. All the big players tell us at the same point, whatever that means, but it never has overall emphasis. They soon return to feeding the masses. So I don't even know what the fuck that was. Whatever. This is the big secret of modern high-level orthodox science, whatever that even means. So the big secret is gobbledygook. Yes, also quantitative models are abstract and are fundamentally not theories of cause. Clearly they're arguing them as theories of cause. So again, this is just such a crock of shit. Every single statement of them, bent space is a theory of cause. Fuck. The time dimension is a theory of cause. They pretend for the layperson to give you causal pictures and metaphors, but they stand upon moving sands. Well, where's the movement in the sand? It hasn't moved for 100 fucking years. We have fucking bullshit bent space and bullshit quantum phantasmagorical mechanics, and that's it. And, well, wacky string bullshit that doesn't have a chance from the beginning. I disagree with your history of GR. Well, we disagree about everything. That's why this is a pointless conversation. I also disagree that orthodox science has weak evidence. Okay, then show me. I mean, it's just, okay, that's enough statement right in itself. So he doesn't think the evidence for the time dimension is weak, when all they have is, yes, velocity breaks clocks. So that's all they have is evidence. There's no evidence that there's a time dimension that gets bent or warped in any way whatsoever. There's absolutely zero evidence of that. And the lensing argument I've made 500 times. If these assholes aren't honest enough to say it's far short of evidence of proof that you couldn't possibly convict a chicken of shitting on the sidewalk with this crappy evidence. Alright, but no, so they're just so dishonest. So yes, we fundamentally disagree, and I think you're just a catastrophic imbecile and a dishonest weasel not to be able to concede that orthodox science has weak evidence. So I'll just put that fucking text in bold. That will be the defense for just blocking you and say, just fuck off, you lying sack of shit. You just can't admit a single fucking reality truth here. Not one. Alright, anyway. It's pitiful. The evidence sucks. Your standard of evidence is insipid. Alright. They hide the true nature of the models and observations to placate public demand to understand and justify their salaries. I don't understand. They hide the true models. I mean, this is just such crap. We're arguing about what they're fucking saying is the reality. Your stupid Al-Kahari guy thinks the fucking brain is run on quantum mechanics, for fuck's sake. They actually believe the universe is probabilistic in the sense there actually is magical dice. There's no physical reality. It isn't in a physical position. Nothing's real. I mean, it's just crap. Alright, the latter conversation would seem beyond any hope of agreement. Any conversation is beyond hope. Like I said, you can't even accept the weakness of their evidence. Something that's just glaring. glaringly insufficient evidence for the strength of their convictions. You think they actually have enough evidence for this whole fucking bullshit theory that two black holes spiraled around each other in some magical binary system that no one even knows how you create in the first place, and turned matter into geometry, and they read it on their stupid fucking seismograph. You think they have enough evidence that that's the truth to sit there and say it like it's the truth. And they don't even say we think. They say it is. Fuck you. I've explained, I've heard it said, and virtual photons are just mathematical accounting systems. Yes, exactly. They're completely unaccountable mechanisms like dark matter. They're a non-existent thing that does stuff because they need stuff to happen because they don't have a mechanism. They have to have something to carry the force, because they have to have a force, because they can't come up with, oh well, we can't really do bent space again, can we? Can we say magnets are bending space? Maybe they will. Maybe they'll listen to a few Ken Wheeler videos and they'll think, well, hyperborealoids probably could drill a hole in the geometry and they could probably make a well, you know, so maybe hyperborealoids really are creating bent space magnetism. I mean, this is such crap. This was many, many years ago. Unfortunately, the notion of virtual particles has become prevalent dogma to speak to them as extent. Has become prevalent dogma to speak of them as extent. It has become prevalent dogma to speak of them as extent. It's the only explanation they have. That's why they haven't gotten rid of it, because they don't have a clue how the thing really works. So again, you're just, what were they supposed to do? Replace virtual photons with the truth? They don't have the truth, dumbass. That's my whole fucking argument. They have no fucking clue because they have an irrational model. Shit. They're looking for some wave solution and they're not going to find it. But that's understood truly by the best, that it's on weak ground. So now you're conceding something's on weak ground. So then one minute you say, I also disagree that orthodox science has weak evidence. So clearly, having to invent virtual photons is evidence that you're on weak mathematics, that you have to create fake entities to save your mathematics. So you're obviously on a weak causal description, math. So your math is only describing outcomes, it's not touching causes. So if somebody asks you why the magnets attract, you have to say, I have no idea. I can give you an accounting of the process as what it starts with and what it finishes with, but I can't explain what caused it. You know, what went into the magnet, because I have no clue. They don't do that, and you know it. You're locked into two paradigms and whatever that means. And you can't appreciate that there are others. Like, what paradigm am I supposed to be locked to? Yeah, I'm locked to 3 dimensions because they've been proven. I've experienced them. I've tasted them. I'm locked to certain notions that you just don't invent entire universes and multiverses. That there has to be some good reason to do that, not bullshit. Just as I don't sit there and see every shadow or every bird that flies by me a little too fast, I don't say, UFO! UFO! I don't jump to an extraordinary conclusion. I first do the ordinary thing. I first try to find some ordinary explanation before I leap to some extraordinary observation. That's the paradigm, fuckhead. No other one here is involved. I've said this over and over again. The only reason why I'm doing this is because their explanations of the two-slit experiment are so preposterously silly that no rational person without extraordinary evidence of this fucking radar or extraordinary evidence of these multiverses should jump to the conclusion that that's a rational explanation. It's a completely irrational explanation. Alright, yours are evidence for evolution and evidence in court. Yeah, that's right. That's all this is. That's all it ever will be in the history of mankind. All it's about is a rational interpretation of the facts, where you don't invent new dots on. You have a bunch of connected dot paper, and you're trying to connect the dots. And one of the rules is you don't, unless it's really, 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 really a confirmed good cause. You never draw new dots. Shit. Cheaters. Okay, without getting into which is best, yours colors everything you read or think and causes hostility to others. Fuck you. That has nothing to do with it. Again, the hostility came from you assholes. You're the ones saying, we have untouchable math. Piero saying, the most proven mathematics in the history of the universe. Therefore, the causes must also be perfect. I mean, don't lie to me. You know, about my own life history. Your own fucking behavior. You stupid cunts. Anyway, you explain your position, we understand that, but we need you to first realize, accept, take account for that our statements stand within our paradigm. I don't give a shit. No, the one paradigm is you don't come into court and have double standards. You don't grill one witness and then talk to the other witness and say, can I get you a sandwich? You know, can I rub your penis? Can I do anything I can do for you at all? You're fucking duplicitous motherfucking hypocrites, and it's glaring and grotesque. You demand from me explanations for the origins of electrons. You don't even ask these assholes how they work. Your double standards are grotesque. You need to understand how they stand within our paradigm. Well, again, your paradigm is just cheating. That's all. You're just cheaters, liars, slanderers. You're just abusive, rude, obnoxious trolls. You don't give a fuck about the truth. You just give a fuck about, I don't like Gary and I don't want him to be right. And that's all you're about, asshole. You're obvious. Okay. Nima isn't radically unorthodox. You don't think string theory's pretty much unorthodox. Nima isn't a string theorist. Yes, he is. Nima is advocating orthodox radical conservatism. Well, I didn't see that when I looked him up. He had some extraordinarily wacky theory. So maybe it wasn't string theory, maybe it was strong theory, but it was some kind of dopey theory. Look, I think you're great in a way, but you're as mad as a box of frogs. Well, whatever, LOL. Again, I just can't, I just couldn't care less. My point to you is you're completely brick wall as a mechanism for conversation. You raise a complaint, I answer it. I point out simple questions to answer, you answer none of them. I mean, this is just horse shit. And then you like I said, simple things. It doesn't take, how much fucking work is it for you to sit there and say honestly, yes, there is no hard evidence of any time dimension. Yes, there's no hard evidence that geometry can tell protons what to do. Yes, there's no hard evidence that lensing of light by gravity is a real phenomenon, because there's lots of conflicting evidence if it's looked at honestly. If you get off the bandwagon that says Einstein's right and you stand up and look at the evidence sucks. So anyway, look, I think you're okay. I don't want to read that again. And that's fine with me. I won't write any more comments if you're just going to delete them. Fine. Yes. Now, of course I'm going to delete them after I answer them, fuckhead. So let's not say I just delete your comments without reading them, without responding to every fucking detail, which I have done, you stinking cunt. But I delete them once they're responded to. That's my right. So I don't have to sit there and type a bunch of crap saying, well, go to this video and you'll see my response. Fuck that shit. Alright, the second comment. Qualitative explanation. So you have to see it as sort of a kind of complex question. Again, so he's using this bullshit word again that I've already said. I've said it previously. So when he keeps, this is how he does reality. He puts things in this qualitative, quantitative thing, and it doesn't really have to do with quantity like how we know the word quantity, and it doesn't have anything to do with quality, as we know the word quality. When he says qualitative, he doesn't mean a good argument, no, a quality argument. No, he just means that it's some sort of bullshit. Well, we'll see. So you have to see it's sort of a kind of complex question, but you kind of see it in a sense. But I'll just say in this tricky situation, it will just work a different way. Now we will account for the complexity, whatever. So he still thinks there's something complex about this. And yes, the subtlety of recognizing when a matching of the useless details. Like somebody could describe a person and they could say, well, their hair is brownish and their eyes are bluish, and they could give a bunch of vague descriptions, and all of those could confirm in some other person, but they could be 3 inches too tall or 3 inches too short, and that one fact, who cares about all the rest? Okay, now there are special tipping points for those tricky situations. You can sort of see in critical, it is critical to the situation, and ta-da. Again, I'm just going to argue that, like I said, if this was a trial, I could sue you, okay, for kangaroo-ness. I mean, you have absolutely no principles are involved here whatsoever. Again, I'm held to every higher standard. You give them every benefit of the doubt. They're allowed to create phantasmagorical, completely non-evidenced savior mechanisms, and I can't even come. If I don't give you, the birth certificate of every single frickin' piece of mechanism, you say illegitimate, illegal. And this is just it's a bullshit conversation. There, I've given you a qualitative explanation, aka just a story. So again, he says a qualitative explanation is just a story. So where I associate the word qualitative with quality, he associates it with rubbish. And that's supposed to be something like it makes communication possible. Somehow people are able to communicate when we can't agree on vocabulary at all, nothing even close. I mean, I would never think that a qualitative explanation could be aka just a story. A quality explanation would have to be one that dealt with connecting the story to reality. For which a simple unifying theory. For such a simple unifying theory, it certainly does produce a lot of complex explanations. So again, none of that's true. And all of that's connected to the fact that there's phenomena, like you could say photons. 99.99% of the time, photons do one thing. They go in a straight line from point A to point B. Nothing to see here. No necessity to have all kinds of wave functions and all kinds of bullshit. They just go from point A to point B in a straight fucking line at the speed of light. Very uncomplicated. Now, when you put them through certain hoops, through certain kind of mazes, all of a sudden their behavior changes and it gets complicated. And then you have to have an explanation because those circumstances get more complicated. But the underlying principle of this mechanical machine, this little corpuscle flying through space, that doesn't have to get more complicated. You're making it more complicated because you're sitting there assuming that the complex thing you're shoving the photon through isn't the thing creating the phenomenon. You think the photon all along had a huge bag of tricks. But this is it's just bullshit to say I get into a lot of complex explanations when I'm actually explaining things your physics doesn't explain. They just go bent space. There, we're done. Geometry did it. Now I don't have to explain drag. I don't have to explain anything. I don't have to explain where the energy came from. I don't even have to explain where the energy came from. I've now converted gravity into a non-force. It doesn't push things, it doesn't pull things, it doesn't do a damn thing. Geometry tells the proton which way to go, the electron which way to go. No need for anybody to think or worry about a single goddamn thing. Now, yes, if I came up with phantasmagorical, silly answers and just said there's a inverse magical rule where the matter just moves based on the inverse square law and there's no mechanism involved. All the photons have a map of the inverse square law, all the protons have a map, all the neutrons have a map, so they all know what they're supposed to do, and so when And so when the sun, there's a little homunculus in the middle of the sun, and when he says go, that means everybody read their little map and go. I could come up with a dopey, idiotic, simple theory, right? That'd be really simple. The sun says go, the other guys read their map and go. So, what the fuck? Yeah. But if you're going to try to make the physics happen in the 3 real dimensions, and you're not going to resort to phantasmagorical mechanisms to answer the fucking questions, then yeah, it gets a little bit complicated, because the universe is hugely dense, and it has a structure. And here I've given you 4 simple rules, and you're saying it's complicated. Left turns and reflections, 2 polarizations, and here you're saying it gets a lot of complex explanations. Well, I mean, no, the basic function's really simple. The scenarios of having a zillion checkers on the board, and the fact that the checkers could make the face of Richard Nixon, that's a complex explanation to say, how did all those interactions take place? You fuck. Hello?
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 Yes, good morning. May I please speak with Mr. Gary?
Yes, Mr. Gary here. What do you want?
Mr. Gary, my name is Anthony from the local chimney cleaning company. How are you?
I'm pissed off that we haven't passed laws that you people get droned. That's how I am. I'm pissed off that people doing this kind of crap don't get fucking fired. Anyway, it's just such bullshit. America the douchebag. It can't even stop this shit. Big, strong, great America doesn't even have the integrity to say, that's bullshit, fella. Don't do it. Or else. Fucker! No integrity anywhere. You're all just such dirty, lying scum. Fuck. You stand for nothing.